Thanks for joining. I will share the recording also if anyone missed this class. Uh, can anyone please confirm my screen and my voice is clear now? That's great. Thanks. Okay, yes. Okay. Sudo su hyphen kubectl get nodes eks Kubernetes service. Let's go to compute. Okay. So guys, I'm going to create a one pod. Yeah. Copy. So the intention of this process, vi pod.ml, paste, kubectl, apply -f pod.ml. What is the issue here? Okay. V1 only, right? Let's ask. Pod is apps V1, huh? Okay. I have given, sorry guys, my bad. Let's go to vi pod.ml. Service account does not exist, right? Insert. I'm just commenting now this line. Okay. So the meaning of this is this pod can access this service account only, but service account does not exist, right? That's what issue is coming. Okay. I just commented this now. Now run again. Pod created, right? So kubectl get pods. Okay. So now you can see my app, you can ignore. This is yesterday created, right? So AWS CLI pod now running. How to log in, guys? Kubectl exec-it AWS CLI pod bin bash. So I'm inside of AWS CLI pod, means CLI also install inside. Okay. So ls. Okay. Now you can see. Okay. Sudo also not working. Now guys, AWS S3 ls command. AWS command also not found. Let's install those packages now. Yeah. Clear na? This packages I'm installing to run. I mean, how you are installing instance inside AWS CLI, but AWS EC2 instance by default CLI packages are there. We no need to install, but Ubuntu we should install, right? Same, my pod inside I'm installing Amazon Linux pod inside. I'm installing CLI packages to run AWS CLI command. Okay, CLI is installing now. So guys, what I'm trying to do, I'm going to access different services inside the cluster in AWS, S3, EC2, RDS. I'm trying to access now. from the pod. So, okay, in this case, if my pod, for example, application is there in S3 bucket, if they want to call any application, for example, secrets are there inside the secret manager. Before connect pod into our backend pod connect to RDS, backend pod first get the secrets from the secret manager and connect to RDS. So backend EC2 is there now. For example, backend EC2 first fetch the secret manager secrets and connect it to database, right? So backend EC2 connecting secret manager or not? Yes, at that time it will take by internet gateway, or you can create a VPC endpoint. VPC endpoint is connected to internally, right or not? Yeah. Now AWS S3LS, see access denied. Access denied for what? This one. See EKS ETL Vera EKS node group do not authorized to perform S3 list all objects. Understand? Request will go to node to S3. Now tell me, my request is going to S3 through internet gateway or not? This is public server. If it is a private NAT gateway is mandatory or not? This is how the request will go. Next, who can accept the request is authorization, right? S3, my request is hit to S3 or not now? Request hit to S3 endpoint, but S3 is not allowing to give the list for your node group role, right or not? In this case, my node group is what? EKS, CTL, Vera EKS. This one only, right? This node group not having S3 permissions. Let's give to S3 full access. For example, add permissions. Now you can access. Wait for some time. Working or not now? Now tell me, my cluster inside 100 pods are running. 100 pods can able to access or not? If CLI install. Why? Node group level. I'm giving a permissions. Node group role, if I'm giving a whitelist, means node group role responsibility for all nodes. All nodes inside pods able to communicate S3. Clear na? This is give all high level permissions, node group level. But this is again a security point of view not recommended. I need to give specific pod only can access specific service, specific access. Then we can work with service account. Clear na? My cluster inside your pods able trying to access a different service, a different only for the specific service. We can go for service account. Service account is like a IAM role in a cluster. Clear na now, everyone? Yeah. So in this case, let's go to discuss the process of service account and all exit. Okay. So first guys, the concept is simple, very simple. Yes, I will take today session is half an hour only. I have an appointment, doctor appointment. So I need to leave 10:15 around. Okay. Yeah. So now you can see this is my service account, for example. And this is my pod. Okay. And now what you need to do, create a permissions. Which permissions required? Simple. Yeah. Now here I can declare a permissions. I can create a policy, for example. This policy, custom policy. I can add a required permissions, right? This policy, I'm adding a required permissions. For example, S3. Clear na? So is it possibility to attach directly policy to pod? Not possible. Pod is not IAM service. Sorry, pod is not AWS service. So to attach permissions to pod, but how we can attach to ESUT instance? For example, this is ESUT instance, how we can attach? Very easy. If it is a ESUT instance, we can create a IAM role. Permissions attached to IAM role attached to EC2. Clear? Now this is what pod, right? This is what pod. But it will not support IAM role attached to pod, right? In this case, we are creating a service account. Clear na? Service account. So first create a policy. then create a service account and use this service account which pod inside. Clear till here, everyone? That's it. Okay. Here we need to understand one more concept. Okay, let's move to now. So guys, I'm going to create a IAM permissions now. You can create manually also, no problem. So for example, I'm creating IAM policy. So AWS IAM create policy is the CLI command, right? My policy name is what? EKS S3 access policy. Policy document will create. This is the, okay. First I need to create a policy document. VA. Copy. Paste. Okay. Which permissions I'm going to give in my policy? Yeah. Copy. So I'm giving list all my buckets, list bucket permissions only. Okay. So now can I create this one now? I'm creating a policy with given permissions. Okay. So I'm creating a policy. Policy name is what? EKS S3 access policy. This policy contains what permissions? Already file is I have uploaded, right? Done. You can go and check here in console policies, custom, sorry. Let's go to here. EKS. What is the policy name? Oh, sorry. Okay. So this policy created through CLI now, or manual also you can create a policy, give it whatever permissions are there. So what I did here, I created a policy with these permissions. S3 list all buckets. So what I did here, see my policy already I have added. This is my policy permissions list and all. By using these permissions, I created a policy. That's what the file name is. S3 access policy JSON. You can give any name, no problem. By using these permissions, I created a policy. Clear or no? Okay. Now, so okay, I have attached a policy. Now this is done. So you have a ARN, you will get right output ARN. Okay, keep it as like this. Now, guys, this is important now. Creating a OIDC, OpenID Connect. So guys, OpenID connection, node inside resources able to get communicate outside EKS cluster. This is kind of VPC endpoint. Clear now? So in Kubernetes pod, if want to communicate internally, we can create an OpenID Connect. OpenID Connect will create a connection between your Kubernetes inside resources to which resource you want to connect. Clear now? Kind of VPC endpoint. Yeah. Now here you can see I'm going to create an OpenID Connect for US East one. Okay, my cluster name is what? Here I'm giving. Vera EKS. Clear na? Okay. So let's create OpenID provider to establish a connection between in the cluster to outside AWS resources. Okay, created. Okay. Next is what? Create IAM role for service account. So now create IAM role for service account means here I'm creating a service account. Just for understand, I have mentioned for IAM role. Creating a service account, which namespace? Default namespace. Which name? This is the name service account. Which policy I'm attaching here? ARN. I have already created a policy right now. So let's go to the policy ARN. This is the one, right? Take the ARN. Clear, na? So I'm saying creating a service account in the cluster name is wrong. Clear, na? Yes. Service account name is S3 Access SCA. Default cluster Vera EKS. I'm attaching service account. See, IAM role, how you are creating to attach a permission. Same service account I'm creating by attaching a permissions, right? Copy. AWS region must be set, then we can give hyphen region US East 1. Okay. Now service account creating by giving us some permissions, the service account creating inside the cluster for the default namespace now. The service account, whichever pod is using, the pod can get a permissions, whatever permissions you attach to service account. Same like IAM role. EC2 will get a permissions by adding a IAM role. But whatever permissions attached to IAM role, those permissions can access EC2 instance. Now, whatever permissions you attach to service account, those permissions will get to pod. Clear now? Service account created. So service account name is what? S3 Access SCA. Clear now? Let me delete a pod now. Or you can do one thing. vi pod.ml. Can I use service account now? Clear now? Now service account exists, right? Okay. Let's try to apply. No, it is not taking. So what I can do, kubectl, delete pod name, delete hyphen f, deleted. Wait for some time. So deleting. Okay, done, right? Okay, yes. Okay, let's apply now again. Okay, let's go to pod. S3 Access SCA. Service account name is correct only, right? I think this name is wrong. Let's check. Where it is pod. Is there any space in between? My service account. S3 Access SCA. Okay. Copy. Okay, let's go to here. S3 Access SCA. Correct only, right? Okay. Let's validate maybe version. Okay. A should be capital. Okay. So in this case, let me change here. Let's go to the pod. Okay, here correctly I have given, right? Control. So let's go to now. Paste, insert. Clear now? Now kubectl apply -f pod.ml. Pod created. Okay, let's log in a pod. kubectl exec-it aws cli pod bin bash. So again I need to run CLI commands. In this case, where I have added a CLI commands. Here. Okay, copy, paste it. Okay, done, right? So guys, now if I give AWS S3 LS, I'm getting response, right? But I need to test now. My role is there now. Node group role. Permissions I have given what here? S3 access, right? Not this one. This one. Please focus, everyone. I'm going to remove now S3 full access. Okay. I have removed S3 full access to node group level. Okay. Still able to get or not? So before I'm using a IAM role, a node group IAM role as a assume role to connect. Now service account, see service account just giving a permissions to pod. How pod is communicating through OIDC. Assuming role is OIDC now here. What permissions required is service account. You don't think service account allowing to connect AWS resources. No. Here, let me explain here in the architecture way. So here IAM node group role is there na, that will be assume connected to your pod inside this. Okay. For example, here IAM role is there. Yeah, this IAM role, if it is running inside the node, okay. So this node, whatever role you have attached, right? This role is assuming to connect permissions. Now what I did here, same concept. Control C, Control V. Yeah. Here what I did here, I'm not using IAM role for the node group level. The reason node inside all pod can access also. Now what I did here, I can enable OpenID connect. Okay. This is responsibility for authentication, pod authentication to cluster, AWS resources. But permissions decided by service account. Clear now? Okay, that's what here, what we can do. service account. Clear na? So now service account responsibility for what? What permissions needs to attach to pod? IODC OpenID connect responsibility what? Assume role to connect pod to permissions, not service account. Sorry here. Yeah. OpenID responsibility, take your request into as per the permissions S3. Clear na? S3 access is there here. If OpenID connect is not there, pod unable to, pod having a permissions, but pod request is unable to travel here, unable to authenticate the S3. Because now I'm not using now node group role, right? I'm using OpenID connect. Clear na? Yeah. So this is one-time activity. Even OpenID connect is one-time activity. We are not mentioning any service account over there, right? OpenID connect cluster level, we can create a one-time activity to assume a role process. Next time onwards, we can get a multiple service accounts. So now tell me, my end one more pod is there. One more pod able to connect without service account to any S3, even if I give permissions? No. Node group level permissions required. If you not give, one more pod unable to connect. See, pod level we can restrict here, right? Now let me create a one more pod here, for example. Exit. So this is clear here, able to connect. Okay. So I'm going to create a one more pod. I can take a simple pod definition ML. Yeah, I'm taking pod definition HAML here. VI pod to ML paste. Okay. Oh, sorry, it's my bad. Okay, I'm taking same ML, VI pod ML. Copy. Let's go to VI pod to ML. Paste. So let's change the pod names here, right? Otherwise, etcd will say pod already exists, right? I'm adding here one more pod dd. So service account completely I'm removing now. If I remove service account here, pod unable to get S3 permissions now, right? Same as service account. Okay. Now kubectl apply -f pod 2.ml. Clear na? So kubectl get pods. Okay, let's kubectl exec-it aws cli pod tt. Okay, and bin bash. Okay, and now let's install again CLI packages here also. Then next is what? AWS S3. Clear now? Unable to access. Only wherever you mention the service account, that pod only communicate because of service account. But this pod also able to connect OpenID, but we don't have permission for the service account, so that we are unable to access S3. Now tell me, this pod, for example, simply if I add exit, okay, exit. So VI pod, can I add service account here also to access? Yes, I can add a service account name here. This run and this pod also able to connect. Same process. Clear now? Yeah. So OIDC is a one-time to assume a role process, and remaining service accounts and all whatever. Can I create multiple service accounts? Yes, different permissions, different service accounts. Can I use the same? I can use same permission, same like IAM role, guys. You can attach single IAM role to multiple instances. You can attach single service account to multiple pods. Service account, you can modify the permissions, and permissions attached to service account attached to pod. This is the flow, same like IAM role. You can understand it's IAM role. Okay. Even you can create a, you can add a add-ons also there, right? Cluster add-ons there also, OpenID is there. You can just click on enable also. No need to run CLI command, kubectl CLI command. Okay. Now every 10 minutes, I mean IAM role, every 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I'm not sure. STS token will be generated, right? IAM role. The temporary credentials will be generated, right? So same now, this cluster also able to generate temporary tokens because of OpenIDC. This OpenIDC is a assume role. Generated temporary credentials, these credentials we can use to connect. Same IAM role, how it will work, same. It will connect to, authenticate to inside the AWS resources. But permissions are which resource. But request will go through token. The background temporary credentials will be generated for this cluster. This is one-time activity only. Okay. You can check even. So if pod want to use any permissions and all, we have to give a EKS cluster use IAM. This will be annotated with IAM role. Okay. You can see what I have created. So you can ask here without OIDC, will my pod able to connect any AWS service, even I have even given permissions service account level and attached to pod? Okay, without OIDC, pod cannot access AWS services using service account permissions. Okay. So pod cannot assume a IAM role. Pod can use assume a IAM role to access the permissions to assume process, OpenID Connect is otherwise unable to locate credentials issue will come. Either you can see server inside, guys. If you attach role, server able to use IAM role as a role authentication, right? But we are not attaching directly permissions to pod, right? Service account. So pod can assume a role to connect. Pod should use a permissions. In this case, pod request will go to inside the AWS IAM, right? To assume a role, pod should use a assume a role. Pod should connect to IODC, OpenID Connect. Otherwise, even if you give a permissions also, pod unable to access given resources. Clear now? That's what. See, all are required here. IODC required, IAM role required, service account required, pod using. Only service account, no, not able to access. Service account plus only IAM policy, not able to access. See, node IAM role, yes, right? And then without node IAM role, OpenID Connect, and this will be access. IOD is mandatory. So OpenID Connect is one-time activity or not? Is one-time activity for cluster level. Okay. Clear everyone? So this is the process of service account. So I'm giving a small task to you. By you RBAC service account, can we build a relation? RBAC service account. User, we're giving a permissions, right? User can use service account to access a permissions. Getting what I'm trying to say? RBAC to service account. Can we build any relation? Go through it and let me know. Okay. Any questions from online team? Now recently introduced this admission controller in place of RBAC. New versions. If required, I'll explain that also. I need to check once. Recently added this admission controllers for new version of the cluster. No need to go through RBAC and all. Quite complex for the Kubernetes. Then version will upgrade. Kubernetes version every 6 months will get upgraded. So if we want to upgrade, again we have to do so many modifications in the cluster. So main challenging role in projects for the Kubernetes upgrades. For example, your cluster is running 1.30 or 1. For example, definitely cluster is running from 4 years back. That time maybe 1.22 version is created, for example. Now recent version is 1.33, for example. Now if I want to upgrade, upgradation is very easy. Click and upgrade. But after upgraded, whatever you have given configuration, that should support 1.30 versions. That is tricky thing here. So we have to understand 1.33 version, what changes are there. First, we should understand. Clear. For example, now administration controls, right? Now RBAC we have implemented here. Now once we move here, RBAC not work here. Understand? Admission control, if you want to enable, again we have to migrate this process into admission controls, administrator controls. So many things are there here. Main challenge Kubernetes, I will show in one of the class also or workshop, Kubernetes upgrades. You can add in your resume also like a real-time task. Okay. I can show, already I have shown here through Terraform. What we can plan, we can do manually, and same workshop itself Terraform also. Okay. Next Sunday, we can plan. Okay. That's Saturday. Any questions from anyone? Are you clear, online team? So here only there, running notes inside service account, how to create pod and all. You just go through these notes. See here. I have created a role for service account. Okay. Yesterday we created role, right? And next what we did, role binding, right? Role binding to group, right? Now role binding to where? Service account. Use this service account to your pod. Understand? So pod will get whatever permissions. Pod can create a pod. Understand what I'm trying? Pod level I'm giving, not user level now. This pod can create a pod or not. This pod can get pod information or not. This pod can communicate or not. That will decide pod inside which service account you use. That service account, which permissions I have given. See what I'm trying to say now, guys. Simple logic. This is little complex, I know that. You are inside of the pod, for example. You have login inside of the pod. Okay. This pod want to get information from the pods. This pod want to connect one more pod. This pod want to access different pod inside something. In that case, this pod should have a permissions to access this pod, get pods, execute pod, and create pod, something related for. In this case, create a role, which permissions required, pod, get, delete pod, something. This role, we can create a role binding. This role binding you can attach to service account. This service account you can use for pod. Clear here? So here, no need to give any S3 permissions, AWS service permissions. Service account you can use AWS resources level also, or inside cluster level also. Yesterday we discussed inside cluster permissions, right? User can get which permissions and all. Now same service account you can use for get pods, get nodes, create pod, delete pod. That service account you can attach to any pod. The pod able to perform these activities. Pod able to access outside AWS or outside cluster resources. Pod able to access inside the cluster resources. Inside the cluster resources, service account should have which permissions? See what I'm trying to say? Correct. So my end service account is there for, I have created a service account, for example. This service account created without any AWS permissions. Clear now? Okay, let's understand. Service account 1. Okay. Service account 1, I have given a S3 permission, for example. Clear now? Now attach this permission to service account. This service account attached to pod. Now this pod responsibility for what? Connect S3, right or not? No. This is cluster outside permissions, right or not? Next, I'm creating a difference. Again, one more service account. Service account 2 this time. Now I don't want to give outside cluster permissions. Inside cluster permissions I want to give. Now what kind of permissions I can give? Get pod, get node, something, right? Get pod, for example. Get pod, get a config map, something, right? Okay. Now this role attached to service account. This is role only, right? Yesterday we created role, RBAC role. How we can attach this role to service account? Role binding. So create a role binding. This role binding, attach this role into service account. Clear or not? Now this service account you can use to pod. Clear or not? Now this pod responsibility for what? Second pod responsibility for what? These permissions, right or not? Can I say this is cluster inside permissions? This is cluster outside, right? AWS inside. Clear or not? No. So service account you can use for to assign a permissions for AWS level, cluster level also. That's what you can see here. What I did here. First, I created a role by giving a get pods list and all. Next is what? Creating a role binding. This role binding is attaching to service account and you were created a role, pod reader. Now I'm using the pod with service account, whatever service account I have created now. Now this pod is able to get pods also. This pod is able to delete pod also, getting a permission. It's clear now? Yeah, like this. In this case, you have to install kubectl packages also, pod inside. Pod, if you want to run kubectl get pod, definitely kubectl package should install inside the pod or not. Yeah. Okay. So I will give a very good use case today. You can start working around this. If you are able to do most of the concepts, you can understand for the permission level. Okay. So yeah, I will share one use case today. 9 AM batch is perform one very good use case that is for Grafana Prometheus. I'll share that use case today. You can give a try. Okay. If you are facing any issues, I'll explain tomorrow class. Clear everyone? Online team, are you clear? Any questions? Yeah. So this is quite complex in the Kubernetes. Just have a look. Okay. Thank you guys. So that's all for today. I need to leave. Thank you. So tomorrow, as usual, we can join 10. Okay. 10 AM. Thanks. Bye.